and your health. Enjoy live interviews and solo sessions with experts in business and health, featuring your host, Dr. Alex Rosa. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to In Your Business with Dr. Alex, where we get all up in your business and your health. Enjoy live interviews and solo sessions with experts in business and health, featuring your host, Dr. Alex Rosa. Let's get into today's episode.
The power of color and how it impacts your life and business. That is what today's In Your Business with Dr. Alex is all about. So I'm so happy to bring my guest, Michelle Lewis, to you. She is the Visibility Vixen. We're going to be talking all things color and psychology, emotions, your business, all of that. So it's going to be a really great episode today. So as you're tuning in, because we are streaming to all the places, like always, let us know where in this whole wide world that you are joining us from. We'd love to give you a shout out. And again, this is interactive. So if you got questions and you're like, aha, I felt that, let us know in the comments below. Let us know if you're live on the replay. Leave any questions. We'll be happy to get those back to you and answer them live in real time. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my beautiful, gorgeous guest, Miss Michelle Lewis. Hello.
Hey, Alex. I'm so excited to be here.
Hi, thank you. And I had to compliment you on your beautiful background and your colors and all of that, because you walk the walk, you talk the talk. You are all about that life.
I get to surround myself with color every day. I feel like the luckiest person in the world.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. I love that. So where in this whole wide world are you? Where are you joining us from?
I am actually in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So it's in the northmost part of the state. I'm very close to Canada. We still have our lake frozen, but it is absolutely beautiful.
Do you find Idaho colorful?
I actually do. Coming from Los Angeles and living in the city, I had no clue how much color would impact me in terms of my environment until I moved up here. And then being surrounded by water and trees and blue sky, it had a huge impact on my emotions and my health. So it was huge.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And we're going to get into all the emotional and health stuff and colors here pretty soon. So tell us a little bit about your company and about what you do as far as color and color psychology and all those amazing things.
Absolutely. Well, I founded the Color Cure about a year ago after having run my visibility side of my business, Visibility Vixen, for many, many years. I found over the years that color was so powerful for my clientele that I actually had to open up a new branch of my business called the Color Cure, because color psychology is just its own thing, and it's so powerful and it's so amazing. So that's how everything got started. And we now have a book, a magazine offering services for people, and it's going great.
Oh, I love that. So what's the name of your magazine?
It is called Color Cure Magazine. We release an issue every quarter. We have over 13 contributors that talk about color in all aspects, not just business, but life and confidence and interior design and recipes and wardrobe. It's just amazing. I love it so much.
Oh, wow. So what type of people should be interested in learning more about color? Is there only certain types of people, or can this apply to a lot of people?
Everybody. Every single person on the planet, I think, can benefit from understanding color psychology, not only from the colors that you see around you or that you put on your body, but the colors that come from sunlight have a huge impact, as I'm sure you know, even on our health. So it's absolutely for everyone.
Ah, so I know a lot in your reels. You love to make reels, and I love watching your reels. You're on TikTok and all the things. And so, why is color? And because I know in all your videos, you're very strategic about your color. And I noticed that you always talk specifically about each color and what does it mean. And so, why is color such a critical part of the decision making process? Why do some people not even realize that color is driving their decisions?
I think most people don't realize it. At least I didn't. I had no idea how it could impact me. I started understanding it, especially when it came to interior design and film, how it was used strategically in movies. That's how I started being exposed to the world of color. The more I studied it, especially how our bodies interact with it on a daily basis, the more I
Mm,
began to understand how you can absolutely, like a lot of us, for example, in the winter, we get a little bit more down, a little bit more sad, right? That's why they invented sad lights. That's taking
mhm.
certain light spectrum frequencies and putting it at your desk since you're not getting natural sunlight during the winter months. So it absolutely can not only drive how we feel, it can drive our decisions, how we purchase at the store. It can affect so much.
Uh, yeah, that the seasonal affective disorder and the light. I mean, so many people like light therapy is so beneficial. And actually,
Mm.
just looking at the colors of the sun, and this makes me think about my daughter because my daughter's like obsessed with sunsets, and she's always like, "I need to take a picture of this sunset." It like melts my
Love it.
because I love noticing things in nature like that. I'm like, we might not ever see that again. Like nature is
Yeah.
she's a one-time creator a lot of the time, and every day is a new day. And so I look at things and she loves taking pictures of that. And I just think about how it makes me feel. And actually it really helps to reset a lot of the chemicals in your body. And a lot of people who deal with trouble sleeping, if you can get up and get some morning sunlight, because morning sunlight is different than sunset sunlight. And that golden hour that my daughter always tells me about. I didn't know nothing about golden hour until she told me about golden hour. So yeah, that light is different. It sets off different chemicals and different reactions in your body, but it helps to regulate your sleep cycle a lot naturally without having to turn to any types of medications or anything. But those
Mhm.
feelings that you get from those colors, it's pretty incredible how color can
Mhm.
do that. So
Absolutely. It's so important.
yeah. How so let's talk. So we talked about colors that we see. What about colors that we wear? Colors that we choose, right, to put on our bodies. So how can those colors impact our confidence, or even do they impact our confidence? And do they make other people treat us differently or interpret us and our message differently because of what we're wearing?
Well, I think it's important to start with the fact that color, and if we bring down the basics of color, that's light,
Mhm.
right? Light
Okay.
from the sun creates the different light spectrum frequency colors, which range from all the colors of the rainbow, right?
Mm,
Red and orange and yellow and green and blue and purple and indigo, etc.
okay.
So it's important to understand that light can act as both a particle, meaning something tangible, and a
Mhm.
wave, like
Mm,
sunlight. So
okay.
what's really amazing is that they've done experiments where they've actually been able to dye like a shirt, like let's look at my shirt, which is blue, and they're actually able to pick up that same frequency that they would measure from blue light.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so powerful to put colors on our bodies because our brain will actually interpret that as that frequency in order to create a mood, a sensation, and even a healing property within the body. So
Mm.
that's why it's so important to focus on what we wear and what our eyes take in. So when you look at your closet first thing in the morning, it can be as simple as what really stimulates me and makes me feel joy today, but it also can be very tactical. So for example, if you are wanting to feel more balanced, you're wanting to feel more in harmony, orange may be a great color to pull out for you that's going to help you feel
Mm.
assured. I have a friend of mine who's an author and she was going in to narrate her next book, and so she wanted to feel very grounded and centered and at home, and so she decided to wear an orange sweatshirt recording every day for her audiobook, and it made her so much more relaxed and it helped the recording go so much better than it had in previous years. If you want to support yourself with more joy and optimism and forward thinking, then pulling yellow. Wanting to feel more confident and assertive and take action, pulling red. These things will help support your intention for every day and also nourish your body because they have linked many, many studies to specific colors having healing property effects in the body.
That yes. And it's so funny. You actually touched on the two colors that I was going to actually ask you about. And it's so funny because my
Oh,
room
good.
is yellow. And
Yeah.
I tend to, because I was going to ask you, when I go to social events, I tend to wear yellow. I love yellow.
Awesome.
When I
Mhm.
graduated with my doctorate, I wore a yellow dress under my graduation gown. When I go to some types of events, I'm like always gravitated towards yellow. My room is mostly yellow. But when I go out, like I have on today, red, I love the color red. It's probably one of my most favorite colors, and I like it in pretty much all the different variations of it. I love
Mhm.
red. Those are like my two colors. And I was going to ask you, I said, what do those mean? But you already touched on them. It's so funny, but they do make me feel like that. I feel very joyful, very happy, very uplifted around yellow. It naturally does that for me. So that's so interesting that you
It
brought.
is, and it's not the same for everybody.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes
Oh,
I
okay.
have parents that bring me in for consults and they say, my child's having a really hard time. They're really stressed
Mm,
out. Their nervous system is just constantly stimulated. And
mhm.
always go, oh, okay. Did you paint their room yellow? They go,
Okay.
yeah, why? I said, well, do they have any type of neurodivergence?
Mm,
Usually, 99% of the time, yes. Well,
mhm,
yellow stimulates the nervous system.
mhm,
So that's not necessarily the best color if you suffer from any type of nerve overstimulation, or if you have a type of
mhm,
neurodivergence, it's going to be just a little too stimulating for you. And
mhm,
so it's really interesting how one color that works incredibly well for one person may not be the best for another person. I believe
mhm,
that color is very interactive in terms of how it participates and responds to us. And so that's what's so beautiful is that we have so many colors to choose from that can
mhm.
minister to us in different ways.
I love all of that. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted you to be on the show, because how you talk about color and the emotions and the feelings, the vibrations, the energy that it brings to you inside. It's not just, oh, that's a pretty color. There's so much
No,
more behind that. And I was thinking
it's
my
so
son's room.
powerful.
So I have a 5-year-old, and so his room is painted. It's not necessarily a lilac purpley color. It's kind of like a grayish lavendery kind of color. It's very like, and we have
Mhm.
it in a flat color. So that's what color his room
Ooh.
his room is.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
So
purple's interesting. I mean, technically the light frequency would be violet, but the way
mhm,
that we have created it in terms of our living environment is closer to a purple.
mhm,
Purple is definitely the color of connection,
mhm,
relationship,
mhm,
spirituality. So
mhm,
it can be a really great color. The only warnings that I would give is that it can
mhm,
keep people kind of in that more ethereal state. So it's probably, especially as your
mhm,
son goes to school and is like doing
mhm,
homework, it'll probably be hard for him to get homework done in a purple environment. So just have him do it
mhm,
somewhere else where he can be more
mhm.
focused. For me, when I was writing the purple chapter of my book, I always put on the color as I was writing it, right? Purple
Oh,
was the only one that I had to go change because I was too lightheaded. Like I could not concentrate on tangible work because
mhm,
that color is so supportive of
mhm,
the spiritual side. It's the last
mhm.
color we see at sunset. So that's why it's tied so much to the spiritual realm. So it's
Oh my
that kind of
God.
stuff is so interesting to me.
That is so beautiful. This is news to me, and I love learning things, and this is so
So fun.
incredible. I'm telling you, if you're watching this on the live or the replay, share this with somebody. This is such interesting information, and leave questions like you have an expert here. Like ask questions, get some insight. So Michelle, for you, what is your color? Like
Oof.
what do you gravitate to?
People ask me that all the time, and it's so hard for me because it's like there's
Ah,
so many beautiful aspects to every single color. And
mhm,
that's what really studying this full time brought that appreciation to me. Before that, I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of orange, but I
mhm,
made myself study it and really appreciate what an incredible color it is. The
mhm,
color I see most often that I'm attracted to actually put on my skin is more of like a sea foam green. So
mhm,
probably 90% of my shirts are in that color. color.
Mhm.
I love the calming and balancing aspects of both blue, which by itself can be a little bit too cerebral, and
Mm.
green, which can be so harmonic and balancing and focused on growth. So that's
Yeah.
probably my favorite. If I could only look at one color the rest of my life, that would be what I would choose.
Oh, so let's change the perspective here too. If you were trying to go into like a deep productive mode, trying to get in the flow, and you're a business owner and it's your day, I got to create, I got to do all of this stuff. What would your recommendations be, either for color to wear or how somebody could decide what color would be best for them?
Sure. I would focus on what type of creating, what type of business work are you doing? For example, if you are doing bookkeeping, that's going to be, a much more frustrating day probably than like sitting down and writing a blog and originating content. So, if you're
Mhm.
focusing on stuff like that, then I would probably wear yellow. That's going to stimulate parts of your brain and help you focus and keep your attention. If you're wanting to create content, depends what the content is. If you, like we talked about, if you're a therapist, if you are a spiritual coach, then purple might be a color that helps stimulate that creativity. If
Mhm.
you are a writer and you teach more tactical processes, then blue might be great to really stimulate that part of your brain. If you're someone that teaches take action, do this now, then red might be better for you. So it's always great to figure out, okay, what color is going to support me in terms of my intention, learning
Mhm.
what that can be. So it
Mm.
can vary for everybody, but I find the majority of the time what I've said to be true. And for me, especially if I am going to be originating content, then I usually reach for green.
Mhm.
Whereas if I am wanting to show up as an authority on camera, then I'll do blue. And then if I
Mhm.
really need to action, and increase that blood pressure, then red for sure.
Ah, so interesting. Ah, so we have
Mhm.
a question here from Yolanda, and she says some
Wonderful.
stylists have recommended that you should consider your skin tone when choosing clothes. What is your recommendation?
Absolutely. So that's a topic called color analysis.
Mhm.
And that's where you can really figure out whether or not you are a let me try to break this down easily. Every person has undertones to their skin, right? Because we reflect color. That means we have pigments in our skin that reflect and refract light in certain ways. This is why our eyes are certain colors. This is why our skin is certain colors. So, no matter what your nationality or anything like that, you absolutely have either warm, cool, or neutral undertones to your skin. There are analysts out there that say, just blanket if you have deep features and deep eyes, you're winter. Having studied it myself, I have not found that to be true. I can have four people with all the same kind of looks and have them be all different seasons or qualities. So when you're
Mhm.
going into what color analysis, it's important to figure out, do you have those warm undertones, cool undertones, or are you neutral? From there, you can start figuring out what your other qualities are. For example, if you follow me on TikTok or you've been on TikTok for at least a year, you've probably seen color analysis exploding and people trying to figure out, am I a summer? Am I a winter? Am I a spring? Am I an autumn? And usually when I'm interviewed about it, people are like, what the heck is that? All it means is that, are you in a grouping where you have cool tones and light features? Are you in a group where you have deeper tones and warmer features? So I definitely recommend either starting to follow those trends on TikTok so you can analyze yourself, or working with a color analyst to figure out what your season or what your main qualities are. The reason for that being, when you go into a store, you're going to be able to do a quick scan. Like I went to Kohl's a couple days ago.
Mhm.
Quick scan. Okay, which palette is mine? So
Mm.
I don't go for the spring kind of Easter colors, right? It makes me look very ruddy in my skin. I
Mhm.
also don't go for things that are too deep and warm, aka the autumn palette. Doesn't look good on me. I'm very more
Mhm.
cool and bright, also
Mhm.
known as winter. So that is the palette that I immediately go for in the store. So I don't waste my time thinking that, oh, that looks great on the mannequin, it's going to look great on me, which is usually never the
Mhm.
case.
Yeah.
So that's just a little overview. I know it's a lot of information, but
Yeah.
hopefully, Yolanda, that helps you.
Yeah. And one thing that I would add from a health perspective is one thing that I've noticed. I'm very good about doing visual assessments of people. And one thing that I pay attention really closely to, and one thing that I teach all my students to pay really close attention to, is looking at somebody, especially their face, and really looking at the color and the texture. And is it puffy? Is it swollen? Like looking at those types of things, just visually looking at somebody. So I would say that as if you are somebody who is going through like either you're losing weight or you're improving your health, or maybe you've noticed that you haven't been doing so well on the health side of things, those undertones are going to change because certain disease processes release all types of chemicals, all types of
Mhm.
things that show up in our skin. Our skin is such a great indicator of what's happening inside of us. So I would say if you've
Absolutely.
noticed that what used to look good on you doesn't look good on you anymore, it could be that things are not going so well in the health department for you, and your body's trying to tell you, but you're just not quite listening yet, and maybe you're focusing on some other things. And on the flip side of that, as you start to improve your health, you're going to start to look differently. We always talk about that glow, and people always want, I want that glow. That glow comes from inside. It comes from physical, but it also comes from emotional sources. So you might start to experience that glow, and it's going to make colors look different on you, and you're going to show up differently because of that. So I did want to touch on that because that's a huge thing too, and it's something that I see very much in people, and also
Absolutely.
comments that I get too. And I'm like, well, I've taken care of myself. So, and I'm not one to wear a lot of makeup and do a lot of things. Like I like to keep things
Me
more on the
neither.
natural side of things too. So,
Mhm.
oh, you know what? That makes me think of something. So when somebody's wanting to like look at what kind of colors they might be, or palette, the undertones, you always want to do that right with just your plain skin, correct? All naturally and
Yes.
all that.
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, I do have people that come into the office and they're wearing their normal makeup and, their hair's dyed and all that, and there are experts that you can find in color analysis that are like, "Natural hair, natural features, take off all
Mhm.
the makeup." I find that to just not be very true to life.
Okay.
So there are many ways that you can tell what season you are, tell what your undertones are, and to me, I'm looking at the whites in the eyes. I'm looking
Yes.
at the natural coloring in terms of the cheeks and the lips, if
Mhm.
possible. Otherwise, just the natural pigment in the skin. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing what makes you, for example, I had a woman who came in and she said, "I'm so sorry. I just have really ruddy skin. So we just have to figure something out." And I said,
Mhm.
"Well, you may have ruddy skin because of the colors you're wearing." So we figured out that she had been wearing cool tones her entire life. She was a
Mhm.
warm. So instantly, when the gold went up, life came to her face. She was like,
Oh,
"Oh my gosh, it looks like I'm wearing makeup." And I said, "I know."
yes.
And so we started putting her in more of the spring colors, and she
Yeah.
just came alive. So, but I hear what you're saying, and I think what's so
Yeah.
interesting about color, having suffered from a lot of illnesses growing up and having
Mhm.
multiple organ failure for multiple years in my early 20s, I can
Mhm.
definitely tell you there's been such a progression in my skin tone. It used to have
Mm,
much more yellow undertones
yes.
because of how my liver was struggling, and
Yes.
my eyes changed dramatically. So I actually have a before and after photo that I can send you after this so
Oh,
that you can see where the eyes are kind of like more of this paler, sickly green, and now they're very vibrant and have the, what I like to call the eyeliner around the edges because I'm so much healthier now. So it's really incredible how we can change and respond according to, like what you were saying, what we're struggling with physically. And what's really cool
oh,
is that color can help support that, right? You have low
exactly.
circulation, start wearing red and putting it in your environment. Your blood is going to
Mhm.
respond and circulate
Mhm.
more.
Yeah,
High blood pressure, wear
exactly.
blue, bring it down. It's
Mhm.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's like color therapy is such a real thing. And I think, and we kind
Yes.
of were talking about this before we came on, but like your environment, and like I always teach about environment when it comes to your health and access to things, and what are you surrounding yourself. But that also goes to what colors and what feelings are you
Yes.
surrounding yourself with. And I mean, if you're changing stuff on the inside, you might as well go start changing the stuff on the outside, because they're all connected. They're all going to support one another. So why not go for it?
Yes.
And do all the
Exactly.
things. Uh,
Exactly.
so let's talk a little bit about how businesses And, I would say businesses, but girl, everybody who's got a brand and you're online making videos, that's your business, that's your thing.
Yep.
How
Yep.
can we use color to better align our message, our visuals, our branding? How with our audience though? Because there might be
Yes.
stuff that we like, but maybe our audience does not vibe with that. So how does that
Yes.
work?
That's usually the biggest problem why people come to me and they go, "Why isn't my brand converting?" And I said, "Well, is it your favorite color?" "Well, yeah." I said, "Well, is your brand about you? Like, are you purchasing from your own business?" And usually the answer is no,
Oh,
hopefully. The problem is we haven't chosen our colors based
mm,
on attracting our ideal client. We've
mhm,
created our brand as a full expression of who we are, and I get it, and we deserve to have that creativity,
mm,
but it matters what these colors mean to our ideal client. For example, you may love the color red, but like we talked about earlier, if you're a therapist, especially a trauma therapist, that
mhm,
color is going to be so triggering and so off-putting to your
mhm,
ideal client. Much
mhm,
better to introduce them with a blue or maybe a green, a more calming,
mhm,
centering color so they feel safe working with you.
mhm,
I see this happen over and over again, and usually when we take that into account and choose a color strategically, it changes everything. I had a client whose main color is purple, but was struggling with conversions into his program. And I said, "Well, in a purple environment, like we talked about earlier, really, really hard to make decisions and take action. So let's move the color on this sales page to
mhm,
more of an indigo that has a blue undertone so that they can have that cerebral connection and make that
mhm,
conversion." So little things like that can make a really big difference. And I find that just simply aren't taught this from a
mhm,
business owner perspective. It's your brand is all about you. What colors do you like, etc. So it's no
mhm,
one's fault that this happens. But what I'm trying to do is get this message out there more so that we can look at our branding in a more holistic way where someone is
mhm,
not only being spoken to by the message on your page of the words, but the colors. People make a split decision when they come to your page within 0.05 seconds. I think that's the attention span. That's
mhm.
not enough to read more than one word. So we need to bring in that visual connection.
Yeah, and I did. I saw that one post that you had wrote about that people they make a decision quickly, and it's the visual, it's the color, and then it's the emotion. And
Yes.
is your branding and is your stuff out there making people want to connect with you, or is it turning them away? So I think that's so important. And Yolanda
Mhm.
had a question here, and
Sure.
I know it's probably super can vary, but what does wearing all black mean? She wants to know.
It actually doesn't vary with Black. All
Ah,
across the
okay.
world, all across cultures, unequivocally, I'm so sorry, Black means death.
Okay.
That's what it means, just
Mm.
unequivocally. Now, I'm not saying that we can't wear black. I love myself a good black top or a black
Mhm.
jean, so I'm not saying to avoid it. If we look at it for what black itself represents, it's the absence of all colors, right? Whereas
Mm.
white is the combination of all colors. So for me, in terms of the body and how it responds, you are going to have no response in any way, shape, or form when wearing black. That means your body, your organs, your emotions, nothing is going to have a response.
Mhm.
It's important, though, that we can actually use this strategically. For example, when I travel, when I fly, I usually am in all black. That's because I'm focusing on just getting there, flying, landing. I don't want to stimulate
Hmm.
anything. I just want to get on the plane and get to my destination, right? So for me, that's when I use black. Other people use it because they just don't want to have any stimulation, especially if they, like we talked about, their nervous system when they go outside, maybe they deal with a lot of social anxiety. Well, then I'm probably going to experiment with them, of course, starting with like oranges and stuff to see if that brings things down into equilibrium. But if not, I'm going to put them in gray since it mutes a lot of feelings over time. And if not, I'm going to put them in black and
Mhm.
just see how that can bring things down. The problem, though, comes when our entire closet is black.
Ah.
And that's when we have really shut a lot of things down emotionally,
Mm.
spiritually, mentally, physically. So most people, when they come to me, they are having some type of misalignment, and it's because their closet is entirely black. So it's always better to break it up, maybe get a black jean and then wear a color on the top to start getting
Mhm.
used to this beautiful relationship that you can have with color in your closet.
Wow. That just made me think of so many things. And firstly, I was thinking about a lot of the celebrities out there or
Mhm.
that wear all black all the time. That's all you see. And I've actually even heard now, this is making me think of this, that I've heard that, wearing all black is a lifestyle. Like it's a vibe,
Mhm.
it's a look to
It's
always
couture.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, to always be in
Mhm.
black. And I started thinking about maybe the type of people that wear those clothes are like celebrities or are high pressured, high powered individuals that probably do have a lot of stimulation all day long. Like it's never ending things being asked of them, cameras, paparazzi, like all of that. So maybe that is their way of calming themselves down, but we've just kind of labeled as, well, this is the style, this is the couture, this is what you wear, this is it. So that just made, I don't know, what do you think about that's my thoughts about
So
it
much
that I
has
just thought.
changed over time, right? If you
Mhm,
look at fashion over time, oh my gosh, has there been incredible changes. In the Victorian era, there were so many different phases of color, and this is when so many colors were being able to be transferred to fabric. And so it was so in to, for example, wear pastels. And then, when green could be worn, and it was so exciting for everybody because before it was just what you could dye from the plants.
mhm,
So being able to get these shades was so exciting. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of our culture has shifted over the last 100 to 200 years. And I think that people do understand what these colors mean. I mean, let's look at a news program. You're going to see two colors, red and
mhm,
blue, right? And they
mhm,
cause opposite reactions in the body. And we can all, I think, pretty authoritatively say that when you're watching a news program, it's either trying to stimulate anger or fear.
yeah.
So I do think that there have been pushes, especially with wardrobe, to prioritize black and gray because they are the most muting of emotions and personality. This is why you see so many school uniforms as either this very dark navy so that only the mind is stimulated, or gray to mute the personality over time. This is why we have that color of walls in our schools, in our government buildings, in our offices, in our hospitals. I mean, we could just go on and
Mhm,
on about how I think that things have been muted over time. So
mhm,
I would really love, especially in the next 20 years, to start seeing more color being strategically
mhm.
used, not only with clothing and fashion lines, but in places like hospitals and libraries and schools to see how things would change. Because I think it would be a huge shift.
Oh, have you noticed a shift in branding and online and the colors that you see people using now in their branding?
Absolutely. 100%. I had a client whose main branding color was pink, which was great. And it was working really well for him and very like polarizing because you don't normally see a guy's brand as pink. And he loved it. It was inspired by his son. And he
Oh,
said, so it used to be black and white, and now it's pink. And what do I do? Like, okay, so pink is great, but it is a color of comfort and passivity. So let's bring in some magenta, which is a totally different frequency,
mhm,
meaning, intention. It's more bold and revolutionary. And let's put pink and magenta side by side in your brand, which is what he did.
mhm,
And it was just absolutely incredible to see people's responses. So it works. It works every time. The only time where it's a little bit different is if you have people who deal with some type of color deficiency, a
mhm,
level of color blindness. But then, if you know that's the majority of your customers, then you use colorblind safe colors like yellow. So there's
mhm.
always a workaround with color.
Yeah, that makes me think of when I had first started creating some graphics, like way back when I first started, and I was creating some graphics. One of my really great friends, one of my really great connections from LinkedIn, he had privately messaged me and he said, I don't really talk about this a lot, but he said, I have a color, I have some color blindness. He said, and I can't
Mhm.
see the words that are on your graphic right now. And I was like, holy smokes, I never would have even thought. So I try to be a little bit more mindful of the contrast that I'm using in visual
Contrast.
graphics.
Yep.
And even on my website too, trying to be more visually sensitive to other people. And I think that kind of flows nicely into this last part that I want to talk about is cultural, being respectful
Mhm.
of cultures and using color. And maybe if you can talk a little bit about what your thoughts are around that and some recommendations or suggestions that you can give to people, and even like why we should even care about doing that if nobody's ever thought about it.
Absolutely. This came to my mind a couple of years ago because, especially as you're advertising in different parts of the world, we all know that different cultures utilize different colors. We don't necessarily know exactly how, but we definitely know that that's true. So, as
Mhm.
I started studying it, my mind was absolutely blown by how different cultures interpret different colors. Red
Mhm.
here means something completely different than in China and in Russia and in Africa. So this can be really applicable, especially if you have a worldwide business or if maybe you're advertising to a specific part of the world and you've never had this consideration. And this is
Mm.
what's funny is because we pay ad managers tens of thousands of dollars to do our marketing and yet they have no idea about this. So that
Mm.
has been really eye-opening for me and I really dug deep and studied all of what I call the main universal language colors
Oh, wow.
and figured out, okay, what does each one mean in the predominant cultures where the color is used? And that really informed me, especially for advertising and figuring out, okay, if you're advertising here, you can't use this color with this message. And I think that's a really powerful thing. Looking at not only the culture, but the history of the country can be
Mm.
really, really crucial because it can mean things culturally that it just does not mean where you live. And it's important to take that into consideration. If not for anything else, of course, for conversions, but also, in my opinion, for respect.
I love that. Yeah, respecting your audience and who you're trying to speak to. And I
Mhm.
think that goes to a further point of knowing who your audience is and being very clear about that and being able to speak to them through the language of color. So I love
Mhm.
that. I love it.
Yes, it's
So,
so
Miss
amazing.
Michelle, what amazing things do you have coming up that you want people to know about or people to check out? What should we know?
Let's see. We have a new issue of Color Cure magazine coming out April 1st. So I'm excited about that and gathering the articles. And it's just such a beautiful issue. And I am actually doing a festival downtown. It's my first booth, and I'm so excited to sell
Oh,
my book and to talk more about color analysis. And it's just been a really fun, exciting year for color. So I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple of months.
I love that. So, what are your handles over on TikTok? What do you go by over there?
Yeah, thank you. It's just Color Cure or The Color Cure, depending on whatever one you're on. I'm sure I'll pop up and I'll be waving these little flags of color so you'll know it's me.
Oh, that's what I see. I love it. I love the colors and it's so fun and it's so different and that's what I love about it. So awesome. All
Yes,
right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending your time with us today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
absolutely.
And
Thanks so much for having me.
yeah, thank you everybody for watching and tuning in. Again, drop any questions later on. If you're watching this on the replay, we'll be happy to answer them for you. And like I always say, for a balanced life, just add spice. We'll catch you in the next episode. Take care.